Hello, Planeswalkers. Welcome back to our next episode of the Lotus Archives. So this week we have something a little interesting. They released the beta version of the Commander brackets. And we have a lot we want to discuss about this. Jack, I know you and I have talked in length all week about this. Waiting to actually sit and talk about this together with everyone else here. A little fair warning. I'm just recovering from that damn norovirus. I don't even wish that my worst enemy. That was horrible. So if I seem a little out of it and a little less talky than I normally am, that is why. But we wanted to make sure we got this out and into the public space here. So with that, Jack, I'll let you start this thing off. What is this Commander bracket?
So Gavin Verhey, who's kind of like the lead guy in the Commander format panel, which took over for the committee that we had before, he released this new bracket beta system to replace the power levels that we'd all gotten kind of used to over the past several years for Commander. So this whole panel, they all sat down, did this whole thing where they tried to break down ways to evaluate players' Commander decks in terms of strength and power, essentially. Because, this hasn't been... I don't want to say it's been a problem, per se, but it's been a hot topic, for sure, in the Commander community, where we've all kind of been we've had those Rule Zero conversations where we sit down and try to figure out, okay, what's everybody playing, right? What do you got? Are we all going to be able to have a fun time and do what we want to do?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's been tricky, I'd say, going to your local game store and trying to sit down with random people you're not familiar playing with and just be able to have that all fair fun game. So this bracket system is put in place, and it is a beta. They're testing the waters with it. Was released a good few days ago. I'm gonna say back on February 11th. So we're about 5 days in with this, and it's basically designed to kind of separate the decks and set them up into these tiers, so that we all know where we stand, basically. To let you be like, okay, well, this bracket with these cards, and it gives you the requirements, essentially. Okay, if you want to play in bracket 1, then you have to meet this criteria. And it basically sets a standard for everybody to play in that bracket.
Okay. So, what was so bad about the original version? Why did they?
A lot of bad actors.
Yeah.
A lot of people just. It was very subjective, right? It was very subjective, I'd say. It's very biased, and you look at a deck and it's like, oh well, I have Chrome boxes or all these crazy power cards. It's like, okay, well, then you're clearly a power 10, but there's always a discrepancy between where's that middle ground, right? Because you have an optimized deck that does a lot of things. But if it does it quickly, it's am I a 6? Am I a 7? Is it a 5 because it's goofy, or is it a 1? And then there's always well, if it's a 1, is it a bad deck? Just not perform well? And there's always I think that well, I don't want to call it a 1 because then it might seem like it's a shit deck and doesn't do anything, and I can't play it anywhere. And it was always just you'd say, oh, I have a 6, and you go to play with other people, your 6 is not the same as somebody else's 6. Which I think that was probably the biggest issue was oh, my 6 is, fucking Urza with a big old top monolith and all the crazy combos, but it's only a 6 because I don't have any tutors. It's that's not, no.
Yeah.
It's got Winter Orb, but I can't search Winter Orb. It's well, you're gonna draw cards because you're in blue, so you're gonna find your Winter Orb, pal. And they call it a 6, and they play with somebody else's 6, who their 6 could be something as simple as, well, I just have... Oh, crap, let me see off the top of my head here. Probably... I don't know, something as simple as like a Balloon Man or a fun, guild deck, something simple and casual that it might be optimized to do what it does, but it doesn't run all the crazy cards that you can see in somebody else's, 7.
No, and it seemed like almost 90% of the people that I talked with and I played against, everybody claimed their deck was a 7.
Right, like
Which,
7 was like, oh, it's a 7, yeah, because that felt like the middle ground.
like, there's no way. And especially looking at these new brackets, the one thing that I did like about them is, for the most part, I only have one complaint on the whole thing in terms of how they have it organized, and that's tier 5, which you and I have already discussed briefly.
Right, yeah, we can get into that later.
But in reality, you're probably hardly ever going to see a tier 1 exhibition deck. Most decks are probably going to be in the tiers 2 through 4, I would assume. Unless you're playing like a legit, okay, this is just all ducks.
Right, yeah.
That might be a tier 1.
I mean, I have a few decks of mine that I've looked into. So, like, if you go to Architect now, and even EDH Track, they have integrated this system into their card pools. Like, you go to
Yes.
Architect, and now it shows you, okay, well, you have... It even shows you the combos. Like, it says, okay, you have all these combos to see if you have, any two-turn stuff or whatever. But let's go into like what the actual brackets themselves are to get a better understanding of what we're working with. So, as I said, so we got 1 through 5, right? So the first one is Exhibition. This is your ultra casual commander deck. This is like you're saying, like, oh, it's all ducks, or it's all my cards have hats, it's like everyone's got their thumb up or something, or it's all horses, right? So, they got no last man denial, no extra turns of any kind, no 2-card infinite combos, or probably any infinite combos to any degree, or if they do, they're, crazy wacky and way far out there to pull off. And it looks like very few tutors as well. Few tutors is kind of like the thing. So you can have maybe one to find like a wacky thing if it fits your theme. I'd say they gave them a little bit of leeway for that.
Yeah, so then that was the exhibition.
Yeah,
correct?
So that's exhibition.
So then 2 is going to be the average pre-con deck that comes out now. So it's going to be no mass land denial, no chaining of extra turns, no 2-card infinite combos, and the big one, no game changers.
Yeah.
With few tutors as well.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, game changers. I'm sure we're going to talk about them in a little bit here once we go through the brackets. I have my opinions. I know you have yours.
Yeah.
I still think they have a lot to work to do on the game changers.
For sure.
But the 2 for the core decks, it's going to be your base precons that are coming out nowadays. It's not going to be the old school precons that were garbage.
Right.
It's going to be the present day ones. The only older precons that I would consider in this bracket are the Eminence precons. So the Edgar Markov, Ur-Dragon, the Wizard one, and Arabo. Those were the only ones in the past that I would see falling into this. The rest of them will probably fall more into the tier 1. But what is tier 3?
So, from there we've got bracket number 3, which is the upgraded. This is beyond the strength of an average pre-con deck. And I feel like with this one, this is where all those 7s are going to find themselves. Because these are the ones that are souped up and, ready to go. They're beyond what a average pre-con would do. And at first I was kind of perplexed by what they could have meant by it, by just looking at the bracket itself. It says beyond the strength, that has no mass land denial, no chaining extra turns. You could have a couple, you could have maybe like one or two late game 2-card combos to kind of like pull in the win after about 8 or 9, maybe 10 turns.
Yeah.
And then you have at the very least 3 game changers. Now, when I was first reading that, I wasn't quite entirely sure where they were going with it or like what exactly constituted that. But then after reading this article, I see that you're saying that. So these are like the carefully selected cards. These are the ones that you want the best in each slot. The game could be a little bit faster than a 2 or a 1, definitely faster than a 1. And they're going to have, you begin playing up to those, at least 3 of the game changers. You boost up your power, you boost up your deck a bit more. You've, changed it up, you've upgraded the precon, you've added cards that you want to set it up towards its main goal. And they generally don't have, what they're saying is they generally don't have 2-card infinite combos that can be pulled out within the first, 3 turns.
Yeah, so
they haven't been brought up yet.
Yeah, so a late 2-card infinite combo that I would probably consider is my personal favorite. You know what I'm getting at. That would be considered a late 3-card, and that would be, oh shit, I'm having a brain fart. You know exactly which one I'm talking about.
I would say the Sanguine Bond and Exquisite Blood. Yeah, that's definitely a late 2-card combo because they're both pretty expensive to play. They've, they got 5 and they're both 5 mana, or the one's 4 and 5.
Yeah, it's like 4 and 5 or 5 and 6, something like that. As you can see, yeah. As you can see, everyone, I am definitely a little out of it today.
It's all right, brother. I got you. I'm in full spirits today, so I got you. But yeah, so that's where that kind of comes in. And then again, no mass land denial in that one, which we can get into in rank 4 here. But 3, I think, is definitely, it's the middle of the bracket, right? This is where I think a lot of people are going to find themselves when they go to their LGS and stuff, and you just sit down to play a game. This is where I think most of us are going to find a lot of our decks end up. You may have thought that something you had was maybe, 8 or 9 or whatever, but then you put it into the Archedeck system and you put it into this, and then you find, okay, well, based on this, it's like, oh, it fits perfectly into this bracket because it's not actually pulling in these crazy fast things that I may have thought it did, which is pretty good. I like it.
Yeah, and so then on 4, these are going to be your optimized commanders. It's high powered, and they have it set as it's time to go wild.
Oh yeah. That's where you buckle up, buckaroos.
Yeah. There is no restrictions other than the ban list. Which 4 and 5, they're exactly the same. At first, I hated it. And because I'm sitting there, I'm like, if I have a 4 deck, my 4 deck is obviously not going to be able to compete against a CEDH deck.
Right.
But after listening to the Command Zone show and how they described it and how some other people described it, you really got to look at the intentions. Right. If your intention is to play CEDH, don't say your deck is a 4 just so you can pub stomp everybody. Because in that CEDH bracket, you're going to have highly, highly optimized decks, even more so than the 4. And a lot of times, those decks are going to be so fast that you're winning by turn 3, minimum.
At the very least, yeah. The way that they're set up for their metas and the way that they're geared, it is a different mindset. Just like how, they said the Command Zone, Rachel Weeks and Jeff G. Quiet were talking about this. And they're both on the Commander format panel. So they helped to kind of like sit down and talk about this whole thing, which is amazing. I love their insight and takes on it.
Oh yeah, it's great.
Where, yeah, I think it was Rachel who was saying that, like you're saying, it is the mindset, right? It's that what your intention is exactly, and like what you're building the deck to do, and where you're taking it. As like, I really understood what she was getting at as somebody who played in the legacy format and had to deal with metas. Basically, I'm just kind of taking that mindset and I'm correlating it to this. Because when you're building a legacy deck, you got to take into consideration what's the top tier stuff that I'm going to be up against, and you got to plan for that. And I feel like a deck that's in bracket 4 isn't going to be... Like, that's where they're separating it. It's like an optimized deck isn't going to be set to go against those things. They just want to go against other 4s.
Exactly.
Right? They don't want to have to deal with the meta of CEDH. They just want to go up against somebody else who's like, you know, hitting the NOS, going wild, you know, building up their stuff, and just having a wild time with it, and maybe winning the game by like maybe turn 6, 7, possibly 5 if they've got those fast 2-card infinite combos, which, you know, they can do in optimized. But they're not going to be doing the craziness in the metagame that the mindset of a CEDH player has. And I think that can come into the deck construction of it, where like a 4 could have maybe 1 mass land denial. Like I have 1 Blood Moon in my Slicer deck, but a CEDH version could have 3 instead of just the 1. So like they're more consistent and more able to get that part out.
All right, and we apologize about the technical difficulties that we had here. Jack, so I'll let you continue here.
Yeah. Let's see, let's get the train of thought back on the track here. We were discussing, and I do apologize if we end up backtracking a little bit here, but I believe we were going over the optimized and the CEDH brackets, right? So we're wrapping up the brackets here, getting to the high-end set, which looks like, yeah, so... Right, okay, now I'm getting my train of thought back in motion here. The main difference between the two, right, is that the metagame mind focus, right, the metagame mindset for what they're describing for CEDH, right, is how they want to approach it and kind of set it apart from that. You have to have that careful planning to, you know what you're coming up against, know what your opponents are going to play, and be able to basically have an answer for any and all things that could come your way and that you know will come your way in a big, heavy set like that.
Yeah, so, I mean, I guess for me, my biggest thing is you're always still going to have those people that are trying to finagle the system to get an easy win.
Right.
You're always going to have that.
Yeah, the bad actors are going to exist, unfortunately.
I guess for me, there's cards like Gaia's Cradle that... Was it on the frickin' Game Changers? It is a game changer.
So a game changer list, yep.
So there are certain cards that there should be another list for CEDH. Yes, they say it's based on frickin' all theory and what it should be, but in reality, you're always going to get those people that come in and okay, my deck is a 4, when in reality it's CEDH.
Right.
That's my only complaint with the system is 4 and 5 are the same exact thing other than a mindset. I mean, as we both know, you playing competitive for a while in other formats. Mm-hmm. Competitive play is very, very different, and you have a different mindset.
It really is. You got to put yourself into, like... it's actually really tough to explain, to be completely honest. Because like before, it was like the only mindset I knew. So when I came into being more in Commander and trying to like turn my brain off to it, it was tricky to go into the more casual, like basically take myself from what we have here, bracket 5, all the way down to like a 2. So like I was up here and then I had to come down here. And for the longest time, and my other buddies in my playgroup will tell you, is like it took years for me to break that mold and like get out of the I need to be the best of the best. I need to win. I need to be, I need to have all these answers. I need to have all this stuff. I have to pull my win as fast as possible. And I think that's that mindset right there, actually, is that you want to pull the win off as quick as you can to move on to the next game and get the stuff, set up and done with, and just pull out the win no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, from what I don't personally play CEDH. I did it a few times. Excuse me. But
yeah, we're not CEDH people over here. I don't mess with that.
I mean, I've played it a few times online. I'm not a fan of it. It makes it feel too much like Legacy. Oh, god damn. Makes it feel too much like Legacy or Standard, where a lot of times in CEDH, you're playing the same decks. And
that's the meta. Yeah,
it's the meta of the games.
You're going to see a lot of the same. So you're going to see a lot of the Urzas, a lot of the Winodas, Keenans. You're going to see a lot of the same stuff, which is where that comes from. Like in Legacy, I couldn't tell you how many times I saw freaking blue-white control bullshit with like counterbalance and countertop before they got banned. It was just all you saw. You didn't see anything else in that world.
Yeah.
It was disgusting.
I mean, like, I saw a post on Reddit, which Reddit, I hate using it for MTG discussion. It's horrible, because most people are salty on there as hell.
Yeah.
But this guy made a good point on the bracket system. Mm-hmm. And he was playing as LGS, and a guy played a Corvold deck, and it was a tier 4 or bracket 4 deck, so they're all optimized, all very good decks, and the guy won on turn 3. And even at bracket 4, the guy looked at the player with the Corvold, and he's like, "What? Is that really a power level 4?" He's like, "Well, yeah, it got kicked out of CEDH after the bans." No, that's the only cards he got removed from it was Dockside and Mana Vault.
Oh, sorry, my cat did a thing. Well, so losing, it's tough because like losing something like Dockside, I feel like shouldn't knock you out of a bracket, because like all Dockside does is like at some point give you fast mana. But then so does Mana Vault, which, like, I mean, well, was it Mana Crypt they lost?
Yeah, Mana Crypt.
Yeah, okay, Mana Crypt, okay. Because Mana Vault is still legal, it looks like. And if he's still able to pull off the win, then I think he was bullshitting.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'll call bullshit on that one, because if he's still able to pull the win off by turn 3... then clearly those cards had no effect on your power.
Exactly.
And your consistency, so you're still a CEDH deck, my brother.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to try to fool me into thinking that, it's a lower deck because I lost my fast mana. Like, bitch, you didn't lose anything.
You're still beating us, turn 3.
You still get your Chromox, you can still play, the fact that you can still play Lion's Eye Diamonds.
Exactly.
Which I'm sure he probably had. Like, if you can pull off your quick wins like that, then... No, which I think is what they're going to look into and why they're going to probably unban some of these. Because they can see that, going forward with this, that the decks can still function at that high tier with or without those cards.
Exactly.
Like, with or without them in the optimized, in the CEDH, we can still pull the win off regardless, so it's not going to change anything with that. But since we're talking about the game changers, what do you say we get into what they are?
Oh, God. All right,
we got quite a few. It's a pretty substantive list, like 40 some cards I got here.
So, and I'll be honest with everyone, we're not going to throw these on the screen when we're doing this. There's
It's a
a
lot.
shit
There's a
ton of
lot.
them. I will throw the link to this article,
Yeah.
but as we're going through talking about these, we're going to express our opinions at the end.
Yeah.
So,
Which these are all staple cards. So
exactly.
like most of you watching, you'll know these. You'll know them by name.
Yeah.
They're all
So,
very big staples.
exactly. So, in white, you got Draneth Magistrate,
Mm-hmm.
Enlightened Tutor, Sarah Sanctum, Smothering Tithe, and Trouble in Pairs.
And for blue, we have Cyclonic Rift, Expropriate, Force of Will, Fierce Guardianship, Rhystic Study, Thassa's Oracle, Urza Lord High Artificer, Mystical Tutor, and Jin-Gataxias Core Augur.
All right, and then black, we got Bolus's Citadel, Demonic Tutor, Imperial Seal, Opposition Agent, Turgrid, God of Fright, Vampiric Tutor, and Ad Nauseum.
Pretty short list for red. It's just Jessica's Will and Underworld Breach.
And surprisingly for green, I'm still shocked that this list is so short for green. But you only have Survival of the Fittest, Vorinclex Voice of Hunger, and Gaia's Cradle.
Yeah. And then for our multicolored, which these are some legends here that we mentioned before, we got Keenan, Bonder Prodigy, Yuriko, the Tiger's Shadow, Winota, Joiner of Forces, and Grand Arbiter Augustine LaForth.
And then, last but not least, we got the colorless. You got Ancient Tomb, Chrome Mox, the One Ring, the Tabernacle at Pendrell Vale, Trinisphere, Grim Monolith, Lion's Eye Diamond, Mox Diamond, Mana Vault, and Glacial Chasm.
That is quite the list. I recognize a lot of those from Legacy.
Yeah.
The Lion's Eye Diamond. So, like, those are ones where you see those in, like, the colorless section where things like the Trinisphere, the LED, which we always just called it LED. It's like, you're going to drop a couple LEDs, all right, you're going to win. The Mox Diamonds and Chrome Mox and all that, those are high-tier Legacy meta staples, which I think you'll see more of. Like, you're not going to see a Lion's Eye Diamond in... I wouldn't expect to see one in an optimized deck, to be honest. Like, if I saw one in a 4, brother, you're not a 4. That's going to put you in... Like, you're prepping for something. You're prepping for a turn 1 win.
Honestly,
with a Lion's Eye Diamond.
With how expensive LED is,
right?
I don't see that being played anywhere other than CEDH.
Exactly.
It's just too expensive.
100%.
The ones that I was kind of like, I'm surprised.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, Draneth Magistrate, great card. Was I shocked to see it in here? Honestly, kinda. Because whenever I saw that, I was like, it wasn't ever like, holy shit, they got a Draneth Magistrate in their deck.
I mean, it does stop you from playing your commander.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, I could see the reason for this one being here because, like, well, A, it stops you from playing your commander.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah, and it's a 2-drop. So, with how fast things like an optimized deck and a CDH deck, with how quickly they can ramp out, they could turn 1 this guy. Very easily. A deck with white, even if it's mono white, with the way that they've got all the colorless ramp and stuff, could easily turn 1 this dude, and then it's got to be like, okay, we got to wait for a wave for somebody to answer it, or nobody else can really play the game.
Yeah, so, I never really thought about it that way. I always looked at it as not for commander. As in, not blocking the commander.
Right, yeah, no, it's because it says that your opponents can't cast spells from anywhere other than their hand. So a lot of players like to, cast from exile or play from, like, other types of things from their graveyard. stuff like that. So like you can't cast spells from your graveyard, you can't cast spells from exile, and you can't play your commander, which is like the whole point of the game. So honestly, if I saw anybody trying to play that, I would just be. It's basically it's a target. Like it's a game changer, so you can play it in bracket 3, as stated with that. It's like you have at least 3 of those game changers. So in a bracket 3, it wouldn't surprise me to see a Dragon's Magistrate, but just know if you're the guy playing it, I'm gonna come after you.
Oh yeah,
Maybe
without
with a
doubt.
pitchfork, but I'm coming after you.
Like, I mean, we could go on and on for days about talking each individual
Yeah.
card. Like a lot of these cards, I'll be honest, I've never even seen played against me. Mostly because they're probably too expensive.
A lot of them can be, yeah, but like there's ones that definitely make sense to be here. And after reading the article too, because at first some of them did confuse me a little bit. Like Underworld Breach was one that I'd like to shout at. I haven't seen used nearly enough to really comprehend what its purpose is. I've seen it in Legacy and Modern, but it is banned in Legacy right now, and I have seen why. It leads to very insane storm winds that they can pull off by like turn 2, where they can ramp up a bunch of mana with a bunch of rituals, play the Underworld Breach, and then just recast all their stuff, and then grape shot you for the win, basically.
Really?
So it's a really dirty card that, honestly, at first glance, it took me a minute because, again, I've been out of the crazy legacy mindset for a while. But as somebody who used to play Storm, I can definitely see that because it gives each of your non-land cards in your graveyard escape, which, escape being that thing where you can, like, play them again from the bin. And it costs, it's equal to their mana cost, which a lot of these are just 1-drops. And then you have to exile 3 other cards from your graveyard, which isn't a problem for a Storm deck because they're popping off so fast already. They've got at least 15 cards in their graveyard anyway. So this could basically just let you recast all your big spells for close to nothing, really. Which, yeah, makes sense. Like, it can lead to a really huge, like, turn 2, turn 3 win in the right deck. Which is wild.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I was very, very surprised more with the green
Yeah.
than anything else. Being Survival of the Fittest, Vorinclex, Voice of Hunger, and only Gaia's Cradle. There is so many freaking good green cards that I thought should have been there. I mean, maybe it's just because I don't see it that often, but Survival of the Fittest, I mean, yeah, it's essentially for 3 mana you can search your card for any creature, but you gotta discard a creature card first.
That's typically not a problem. Like, if I had this in my my elf deck, it would be absolutely absurd because I could just pitch a random elf I don't need for like a combo piece elf that I do need.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's in there because it's so cheap.
It's cheap, it's consistent. I mean, speed is really the name of the game when it comes to a lot of these. I think, and how like their effects are pretty busted up.
But I mean, I'm still
yeah.
shocked that like cards like Doubling Season weren't in the greens. I mean,
Doubling Season is one I could definitely agree with. That probably could be something that goes in here. I don't know. My opinions have like altered quite a bit after really reading this and really getting into their mindset for this. Because also the other thing they're going to be using with this game changer list is potential bans and unbans. So like if they're going to, any upcoming, ban hammers that come down is likely to come from this list, according to Gavin here. So I'm not sure if we would see something like Doubling Season or, any of those doubling cards hit here because we have a lot of other effects that do that, right?
yeah,
Like, there's a lot of enchantments out there along with Doubling Season that do kind of the same thing. So if they ban one, you'd think they'd have to ban the others.
Yeah,
just because of
because
how like saturated that is. They have a lot of effects like that out there.
yeah, I mean the best way to look at this game changer list, I think, is to look at it as a pseudo ban list, and as in you can only have a certain amount from each one. I mean, it kind of is a ban list. Because
In a sense,
I was listening to an article. I think Legacy did something like that, where there were certain cards where you could only have a certain amount in your deck. Or is that Modern?
I don't recall
I remember
that one
hearing,
if they have that.
yeah, I was just remember hearing something that there were certain cards. Couldn't remember if it was Legacy or Modern. I knew it was one of the older formats, 60 card, but
Hmm.
they pretty much had it put out as, oh, you can only have a certain amount of these cards per your deck. I remember reading that Sol Ring was one of them. You can only have like one or two of them as opposed to four. But
Well, that's
regardless,
interesting.
that's a tangent for a different day.
I wonder if that could be something like oh, what's the other like vintage?
That's what it
'Cause-
was.
yeah, because you can play Soul Ring in vintage. You can't play Soul Ring in any other set.
That's what it was.
So I think vintage is the one. Which vintage is, bro? You want to talk about the sweatiest of the sweats? You won't find like those are. That's the money people right there, man. Those guys got their wallets filled.
Yeah. I
It's disgusting.
So, I mean, I wasn't.
I think this will work.
I think so too. There was a few things that I was kind of surprised to see. More how many legendary creatures were on this list. But it makes sense.
Right,
Looking
which
at
they
it.
do go into. They do go into effect with that of like seeing your commander there. Like there's an FAQ at the bottom of this, which they were like, okay, well, why is what does it mean if my commander is on this list? And he brings up a really funny point that actually gave me a good chuckle. It's like, I've never seen a good, fun Grand Arbiter Augustine deck. And I've played the fucker, and I've never seen somebody build him to be a nice, cool, fun
No, it's
commander. Like, you don't look
impossible.
across the table. Yeah, you don't look across the table and see Grand Arbiter and think, I'm going to have a grand old time. No. You look at that, you groan, you sigh, you go, I gotta pay taxes. And it's like, yeah.
But I mean, Kinnan, I understand why.
Yeah, makes
they're
sense.
on there. They're a staple in CDH.
Yeah.
Same with Yuriko. Yuriko,
that
and
one. I understand Yuriko.
yeah, I understand all the multicolor ones. To be honest with you, Winota is the only one that I haven't played personally, so I'm not
Lucky.
really sure on the interactions with that one.
She's janky as hell. It's like she's got these. So yeah, whenever a non-human creature you control attacks, look at the top 6 cards. Put a human from among them onto the battlefield, tapped and attacking, gains indestructible. And you put the rest on the bottom. Yeah, so she can just, you have multiple non-human creatures attacking, and you just get to search. You just sift through your deck for humans, and it's like a mixture of cheap, easy non-human creatures to attack with, and then you basically just keep flipping for ridiculously powerful human cards to dump onto the board and steal the game away.
Yeah, I mean,
She's busted.
yeah, I mean, Turgrid and Urza definitely should not be on this list by any means. I don't think they're that good.
That's hilarious. No, they definitely should, my brother.
Oh yeah.
Urza for sure.
When I heard that they were doing this Game Changers list, one of the first things that I said was, "Oh, Turgrid's going to be on this, and Urza's going to be on this."
Yeah, absolutely. There's no getting around them because like they are like if you look at it, literally game changer, right? Like that's what they do. Like these cards were decided on as things that will warp the game in its entirety.
Yep.
Right, like they're things that could, bump you up to have a huge win, or things that will set your opponents back. like Cyclonic Rift and stuff like that, and like Expropriate, things that will put you so far ahead that it makes it difficult for your opponents to even catch up. The
Yeah.
only commander that I was surprised to not see here was Derevi.
Yeah.
For the same reason as Yuriko, because Yuriko gets around commander attacks.
I was shocked that already wasn't on here.
Right? Like, Derevi was the OG for getting around commander attacks.
Yeah. I mean,
So the fact that that's not on here
Derevi was my first.
perplexed me a little bit.
Yeah, Derevi was my first play in the stacks format, and you actually helped me build her, and I ended up taking her apart because the playgroup I was in hated it so much.
Yeah, they do that.
Yeah. But that was back when we first started playing, like, seriously, and everyone else is still playing frickin' slightly upgraded precons, and I roll into the table with fucking Derevi.
Yeah, so that's kind of what they're hoping to remove with this system, and I know they're going to be using the beta at MagicCon Chicago, which is going to be pretty cool. Sadly, I won't be attending that. I would love to go out to a MagicCon at some point to, figure that stuff out and, like, possibly be there to see these things.
I mean, if there's ever one in New York, I would love to go.
Oh, yeah, there's one in New York. You'll definitely see us there for sure, probably. But I think this system will work very well in the local game store setting, the tournament setting, to have... And it's just like Rachel Weisz was saying, too, because, like, I love, when she mentioned this, was like, you'll see on the tables, they'll have, bracket 1, bracket 2, bracket 3, and, like, they'll be set up, like, certain tables for those brackets, and that's where you'll play. Basically, it's like, oh, I'm looking for a bracket 3 game. Okay, I'm going to go to that table, and I'm going to play in that bracket. Everyone's going to come to the table with that setup, and I think that's where it'll work.
Yeah,
really well.
I think at the local game stores, it's going to be very, very well.
I think it'll be well received there, and it'll work.
The amount of times that I've showed up at an LGS and there was disagreements on the deck's power level.
Yeah.
Whether it was on my end, underestimating a deck that I had, or an opponent doing the same thing. Oh, yeah. I mean, I generally undervalue my decks.
Yeah. I think that's what most people do. They'll be like, it's probably not that good, and then they'll play and be like, oh, shit, I just killed that guy in, like, 3 turns. Oops.
Oh, I remember I did that to frickin' Anthony when I built my Sire Gwen deck.
Yeah.
I literally just built it up, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh, this thing isn't that good. And I took it over to play at his house, and I beat him, like, turn 4. I'm sitting there afterwards, I'm like, I don't even have this thing, like, optimized in my mind yet.
You wouldn't think, right? So, this bracket, I think it's going to work really well with that. I do see some potential negatives in other ways for, like, the bad actors, like we mentioned, where they'll kind of abuse the system in a sense, because, like, looking at the decks I've built, as an example, right? If I go and I look at we can just say, like, my Elf Ball deck, right? That I know we've mentioned before and we've talked about. If I go off of just purely what the bracket system is, this deck is a 3. Right?
Yeah,
so
no, it's not.
No. It's not in the sense after I've played it and my buddies have played against it and you've played against it and so many people have used against it. I've been able to pull off a win fairly consistently with the way the deck is built by turn 3 to 4. So what we have to consider with that is, like, there will be some bad actors who do want to go into the things and take decks like that and use the system and be like, oh, well, it has no land denial or chain extra turns and there's no... stuff like this, and it's only these few game changers, or it has, they'll claim it has no game changers, which a deck can be upgraded or even possibly optimized without the aforementioned listed game changers, right? Because it's a beta, right? They haven't included every possible thing to account for yet. So what this needs to have is it doesn't take away critical thinking, right? Or like you still have to have that, right? You still have to have the insight and your own way of being to know your deck, know what you're doing, and still consider, okay, well, it may not meet criteria of a certain bracket, technically, the deck still performs as well as it could in that tier.
Exactly.
So, and I know we're still going to have people that, take a deck like the elves or whatever, that technically meets a certain thing, and then they'll bring it there and they'll just pub stomp, a bracket two. Because, oh, well, technically it meets that criteria, so I can play it here. It's like, don't do that. All right, don't be that guy. That's a big feel bad for everybody. You're gonna leave that table with people hating you and not wanting to play with you again. They'll see you come and be like, nah.
It's no different than the guy that made a CEDH deck, and
Right.
oh, well, I just took out these 2 cards, dude. The rest of your deck is still fucking CEDH.
Exactly.
2 cards isn't going to change that.
No, and it's definitely possible to still have a deck without those things. And this list is going to be changing over the course of the year. So,
I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm excited for it. I think it's very good for the community. It's the fact that Architect and Moxfield are already doing this. It's
EDH
amazing.
Too has it.
Are they?
You can go into if you go to EDH Rec and you look up certain things, it'll show you. It has a little GC now on certain cards. It'll tell you what a game changer is.
Okay. Like, I'm looking at the Architect one right now. And for my Lazav deck, which is... My Lazav deck is... So for those that don't know, Lazav was my very first commander I ever built by myself. That wasn't a precon. It was horrible. I didn't know anything about deck building back then. But I rebuilt it not too long ago. And right now it's only saying that it's upgraded 3. But if you click on Architect and you click on the estimated commander bracket details, it goes into detail for you now. It shows it not having any mass land denial, no chaining of extra turns, and up to 3 game changers. And it'll go in and it'll show you the game changers you have. Like, I have Demonic Tutor and Rhystic Study in this. And then 4 non-land tutor cards with Perplex, Shred Memory, Demonic Tutor, and Muddle the Mixture. Which, the fact that it's going into that much detail for you, it's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like my elf deck has 8 non-land tutors. So I have 8 different ways of grabbing creatures, which is basically all elves wants to do. Which that's what keeps it so consistent. That's how it lets you pull off a big win like that. And that's why it has little asterisks underneath that, which shows, hey, this deck seems to have a high number of tutors. You might want to consider if it's actually this. So, like, they'll tell you, which is why I love Architect now. Like, the Architect is becoming kind of like the biggest and best thing I can think of to putting a deck into a system to see where, the stuff comes out of. Because it's like, listen, you may not have, like, I have no game changers in elves. However, which because, Crater Hoof isn't a game changer, Hall of Gemstone isn't a game changer, which I will die on the hill that Hall of Gemstone is a mass land denial card.
Oh, 100%.
Right? Like, for those that don't know, Hall of Gemstone is a 3-drop that says during each player's upkeep, they choose a color. And until end of that turn, all mana-producing lands... Or what is it? Mana-producing lands produce mana of that color instead of the normal color. So it doesn't change the land type like Blood Moon does, and it only does it for that turn. So while the active player has the mana they need, everyone else on the board doesn't. So it denies them the colors that they might need but it is circumstantial. So if you've got two blue decks on the board, and I'm playing my Hall of Gemstone, when I say green on my board, that screws them up. But if one of them, but then it goes to the next guy's turn, he chooses blue. Okay, now the other blue guy has his stuff. So it's a very situational form of land denial. But I'm gonna die on the hill saying it's still land denial.
Oh, I
And
100% agree.
it may not be to the toppest tier of like a Blood Moon or things like that, but it's still it gets the job done in a very fun way. I
Yeah.
think.
Like, I find it funny. Like, I pulled up my Miram deck, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
I know my Miram deck is very high powered. I'm not going to pull it out against a bunch of precons.
No, you wouldn't.
But, looking at it, I only have one game changer in that deck. And that's Psych Raft. And
That's a big game changer, though.
yes.
That's a big one.
But they have it
That
listed
could win you the
as...
game.
Yeah. They have it listed as a bracket 4. And I only have one game
That makes
changer.
sense.
I only have one game changer, 2 non-land tutor cards, and but I do have 3 2-card infinite combo pieces.
There you go.
I have Rite of Replication, Scourge of Valkus, and Terror of the Peaks.
That'll do it.
So I know
Did you
this
even
deck
know
is
those
good.
were- Did you know those were there though before? Like, did you plan on having them in the deck, or did it just happen that I put them in there because they're good cards, and then oh snap, they actually form a combo? Like, did you know it was a combo before it showed you?
With I had Rite of Replication in there essentially to help pump out more
Right, till I
tokens.
pump out the tokens. Yeah.
I didn't know about this combo, to be honest with you.
Right. Yeah. Which
Because
like,
half the
is
time,
pretty wild.
yeah, half the time I was like, oh shit. I'm usually winning by the time I even get some of those cards.
Exactly. Yeah.
But knowing that this is already a tier 4, or bracket 4, it's gotten me to think, yeah, you know what? Might as well go all the way and put more freaking game changers in this deck.
Absolutely.
Edit this even more to make it even better.
100%. The final deck that I had that I wanted to mention because they don't have it listed as having 2-card combos, but it does, is the Stella Lee wildcard deck
Okay, yep.
that I've been playing. And when I go into it, so it's a bracket 4. It's got several game changers in Psych Rift, Mystic Study, Fierce Guardianship. It only has a single tutor with Solve the Equation. But when I go to try to view the combos, it says I have none. However, I do run Twisted Fealty, which is a known combo piece for Stella to win the game on their own.
Okay.
It's a 2-card combo. Stella Lee plus Twisted Fealty will win you the game on the spot. As Twisted Fealty is a 3-drop, that is a sorcery, says gain control of target creature at the end of turn, you untap it, it gains haste, and then you create a Wicked Roll token on that creature, and then if you control another roll, you put that into the graveyard, and then the enchanted creature gets +1/+1. When that aura gets put into the graveyard, each opponent loses 1 life. So the way that this would work now, I think I'm actually starting to realize why they don't have it listed as a 2-card combo. Because in order for Sully to actually work with this one, you have had to play at least 2 other cards in that turn to use her ability to copy the Wicked Roll token, to copy the Twisted Fealty. So, okay, so it may not be... I may have just corrected myself in that. Because you do have to have a couple other prerequisites to pull that off, because you have to cast at least 2 other spells before that. But it's not very difficult to pull off. But given that I know that that exists, even if the system doesn't know it exists or doesn't recognize it exists, the fact that, you know, the critical thinking is still there and that you can recognize, hey, I actually have these other pieces in the deck that form these combos and these things that I can chain together, I know that it's higher than what the system might say it is. And that's what people need to take away from this. Whatever you may think of it right now, what we need to take away from it is that the critical thinking aspect still needs to be there. And you still got to be able to take into account what your deck does, how you built it, where you're going with it, and all that.
Bingo.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you know what your deck can do. Don't fuck around with other people and say it's higher or lower than it actually is. Because there's not a worse feeling in the world when you go up to a table and you expect all the decks to be the same, and one guy has a significantly weaker deck. Now you're sitting there like, is my deck too good for this bracket now? Like, I thought this was a 3. Maybe it's not. And then you start over-adjusting, and then it ends up being bad. Mm-hmm. If you know your deck's a 2, your deck's a 2.
Right. And to figure all that stuff out, gold fix the deck, play it out, test it out, all that stuff. And they'll be good. I think overall, I think the system's going to be good for us.
Yeah, I'm certainly excited for this. I'm excited to see how it evolves, more so.
Yeah. I know they're going to be testing it with the Magic Con, and they're going to see where it goes.
Yeah.
And they'll be making changes to it as needed from there on.
And I don't think this is going to be a quick process by any means. No. It's going to be a lot of trial and error. Mm-hmm. And especially with the Game Changers lists. I know you were mentioning that they might be looking at the Game Changers list as a potential ban list.
Yep. If any bans come, if they ban cards in the future, they're likely to come from that list.
Yes.
Is what it looked like he was saying.
Yeah, and I could definitely see that. Although we might get a freaking card that is so batshit fucking crazy, no different than Nadu, that doesn't even get an opportunity to go on the Game Changers list.
Hopefully we don't have many Nadus in the future. I feel like that was a big wake-up call for them.
Yeah. Especially once they banned that, because that changed Commander completely.
Yeah.
But with that, Jack, did you have anything else that you wanted to touch on with these brackets?
No, I'd say we covered pretty good. Final thoughts there being that, I think it's good. I think it'll work out well. I think we do have to be cautious of the bad actors that could be out there, and that, the opportunity is there to abuse it in other play. But I think as far as LGSs go and tournaments go, I think this system is great. I've been hoping we've had a better system than the power level system. I'm looking forward to how this goes. I think we need to keep talking about it, as Josh Quiet mentioned before in that video as well. I 100% agree with them, is that we need to keep bringing this up. The more we bring it up, the more we talk about it, the more we have our Rule Zero conversations and discuss these systems, the more it evolves and the better it'll be.
Without a doubt. But with that, everyone, appreciate you guys tuning in. Next episode, we will be diving back into our deck talks. As always, I am Kava.
This has been Jack.
Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Take care.